Parnell, first to you. Have you seen anything like this? It's an extraordinary couple of days for our Prime Minister on the world stage, this spat with the French leader.
It is, but it's not unheard of for leaders to use the events and relationships with other countries to prepare themselves for their own upcoming elections. And in fact, it's something that Macron has done to some degree with in a number of different fields. So he has, since February this year, been battling on the stage of critical race theory, which is, he says, an invasion from America into French culture. And this probably feeds into the narrative that Macron has been building ahead of the upcoming election, that he is putting France first, that he's standing firm against the Anglosphere. This works really well in differentiating himself from the pack and also taking away some of Marine Le Pen's potential voters.
Interesting analysis there, Darren, particularly in the, Parnell is 100% right. It's heading into their presidential election, April of next year. So there is that to factor in. Then the Prime Minister going tit for tat, though, with releasing some of the text messages.
Well, equally, we're heading into our own election season, Kieran, and I think, there are questions about the government's record and this Prime Minister's record on climate change, and I think he probably wanted a distraction, but I'm not sure this is the one that he was after. I think the tit for tat, the betraying text messages and private personal communication is a very big step in the diplomatic world. I think it will be frowned upon quite severely. I'm not sure in the fullness of time whether that will have proven to be a wise decision. Now, we'll probably never know whether our Prime Minister lied or didn't lie, but certainly at the very minimum, the French feel very let down by the behaviour of Australia, and that bridge will take a long time to repair, and we may well see that play out in negotiations through the EU and other very important forums that go beyond the current COP26 in Glasgow.
Yeah, Parnell, and the Prime Minister copping it at COP as well. Do you think he's maybe thinking, I probably shouldn't have jumped on the plane? You had the row with the French and now copping flack in Glasgow.
I don't think he'll be entirely unhappy with the outcome when he comes back. I think that we tend to see things through a lens of people who watch the news very closely and are worried about what the international community is saying about us. But really, the Prime Minister will have gotten through enough of a message to people who aren't paying too close attention that he is taking some action on the climate front, but doing it without betraying Australia's interests. I think he will also be given credit for standing up to the French. Look, everybody knows that, of course, Macron was going to be upset about losing a great big contract in the lead up to an election. Whether there is some... Of course, there is some debate now over who knew what at what stage. And of course, there is a question about whether you should leak documents around that. But the truth is, people do this, leaders do this. And I think what will have gotten through to your average punter will have been generally a picture of a Prime Minister who is sticking up for Australia on the international stage and sticking up for our interests.
Darren, do you think that's a fair assessment? Because it's obviously not normally a top priority, is it, foreign policy when people go to the ballot box?
That's true, and I think that the Prime Minister has, in one sense, quite cleverly turned Mr Macron's attack on the Prime Minister to being one on our nation, and that probably resonates with voters, but as Anthony Albanese has pointed out, that's not what the French president said. So it's going to be interesting to see what the reporting is in the next day or two. But that sort of nationalistic message from the PM will probably resonate quite well. It just doesn't accurately reflect what occurred.
Yeah, Darren, do you think that Labor has taken a risk, though, in bagging the PM on this issue, given what Parnell said? People might read this as the Prime Minister standing up for the nation. Is there a risk there, in the Labor tactics on this?
I don't look, to be honest with you, I think the story, in much the same way that the pandemic has been state premiers versus the federal government, this one's going to be France versus Australia. This isn't really one where the federal opposition is a substantial part of the story. It's more, you know, how does the Prime Minister look and how does that come across? And that's generally the case when leaders are on international tours. It's about their performance and how that comes across. And that's going to be, you know, a challenging week for the PM, but I'm sure that he's confident that he can, you know, get out of this conference what he needs to.
Parnell, Darrin, great to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.